there's a strong imprint in my personal, in my quantum field from that decision. I'm changing the space around me. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Orphic. My name is Alyssa. I'm an astrophysicist. I have my PhD, and I do research on the intersection of science and spirituality, trying to understand how the entire universe works. So please give me a follow on Instagram at interdimensional.astrophysics. Hey.
Hey, I'm Mikayla with Mariposa Moonchild on Instagram. I work with shadow alchemy and energy medicine. And together, Alyssa and I are exploring the mysteries of the universe on the Orphic on our podcast.
Yeah. Awesome. Love that. Okay, yeah. So we start every episode by doing some grounding in, deep breaths to cleanse the system and be present. So Mikayla, start us off.
Yeah, I'm going to light a little bit of sage. Just cleanse the space a little bit. So and then I will invite you to close your eyes and we'll take a few deep cleansing breaths together. And the great thing about, the quantum field is that this sage smoke can travel right through time and space to wherever you are, through your phone, your computer, into your space. So feel into the energy of that, of the sage, of the smoke, and let it wash over you and cleanse you. And let's take a few deep cleansing breaths together. So I invite you to close your eyes if you're able to. I invite you to place your hand anywhere on your body that feels comfortable or not, whatever feels good to you. Let's take a deep breath in, filling our lungs all the way to the top. Sip in as much air as you possibly can and just pause at the top. Connecting here to your body and opening the mouth and letting it go. Another deep breath in, all the way up, as much air as you can get in. Hold. Let it out. Another big breath, just like that, filling your lungs all the way up, up, pause. Feel your heart beating in your chest. And when you're ready to exhale, releasing the tension that you may feel in your body, letting it go. Taking a moment to thank your breath, that element of air, the oxygen that oxygenates our blood so that we can breathe. So that we can feed our tissues with the oxygen. And thanking our body, our lungs that allow us to perform the action of breathing. And then also allow us to take in those vital nutrients that we need to filter out what we need and send it to our body, to the different spaces of our body, and our beautiful heart that, without us even thinking, pumps these vital nutrients that we need all the way around our body. And then I invite you, when you're ready, to just slowly and gently come back into the space that you are in. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Um, I yeah, I have a lot of things I want to talk about today. So, like, let's let's do that because there's so many things that have been in this mind of mine, like relating
Yeah.
to the quantum. There was one other thing when we were tuning in though that I wanted to say.
Yeah.
That was kind of coming to mind recently because yeah, so I guess before I jump into that, like I'm recently wanting to do a lot more work in my business, and which would be yeah, just like my brand and all these things, like which part of it has to do with some of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, which is like my independent research of time and kind of blending science and spirituality and my independent like out of the box research. So like that's one thing, but it's also offering readings. I just had this idea to create a course. I posted about it on my Instagram, but I should talk about it here too because why not? It's very exciting. Share with the listeners in case you didn't see it. I yeah, like this idea for a course has come to me in the last few months, and it's going to be something like it's going to be kind of an overview of like the universe and astrophysics of the universe, but also from this spiritual lens or from this perspective of really like highlighting like where the bounds of our knowledge are, and also kind of summarizing some of my own ideas of like how spirituality can fit in to explain some of these bounds of knowledge. And I feel called to share the name of the course, maybe. Yeah, I want to share. What? You're giving me that look.
I don't
Why?
know. Yeah. I mean, whatever you want to do. You just don't have it out yet. So I'm like, I'm like, dude, I'm like, ah. But
No,
anyways,
I'm
you
gonna
go.
share it with the podcast listeners because if you're listening here now, then you are cool. So you get
Yeah. Okay. Hell
it.
yeah.
And I just love the name so much. And it's Student of the Universe. Did I tell you that one yet? Did I tell
Ooh.
you that? I love it so much. It's so funny. Like a lot of my business ideas, so a lot of things come to me when I'm in spin class for some reason because
That makes sense.
because
That's like meditation, like
exactly. And
exercising.
it's
Yeah,
like
totally.
I'm stuck in one spot on the spin
You're
bike.
like blacking out, like
Yeah. Like so it's just funny like so sometimes before I go into spin class I'll like set a sacred space and I'll be like, all right, give me all of the business ideas that I need, or
Oh,
give
I
me
love that. I've never done spin. I think I'm a little afraid of it. People are like, "You've never done it before?" I'm like, "No." I would like to though. Like if someone took me, I would go. I just like
Mm-hmm.
don't have a class. So we live so far out of town too.
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've never done it before. And I so like it'd be out of my comfort zone big time
Yeah.
to like just go. Like I would go with someone else probably and like check it out. So I also
Mm-hmm.
think like I would probably die the first few times. So
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It's definitely a sweaty exercise.
yeah,
But
it's good for you though.
it is. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just wanting to hype up the course a little bit because obviously listeners would probably be interested in it. But yeah, it's all kind of under this category of like, these things that I'm working on figuring out like what kind of work lights up my soul, and
Hmm.
then create putting that into my business. And like I yeah, I've kind of been going back and forth with like I don't know, I haven't really been looking at full-time jobs lately, but I'm at this weird point right now where, well, first off, I've like the tutoring that I've been doing sort of is part of like entrepreneurship, and that is part of like my business because
For
that's like
sure.
yeah, so that and it's using my skills. It's all self-employed and all independent stuff. But so I'm trying to like also look at that as like, look, I already have one foot in the door, and I just know this other timeline is so available to me, and it feels like so close that I can taste it, and I feel so ready to start taking action on things. And so I don't know, in my mind I always thought like, oh, I'm gonna have some full-time job before I go full-time into entrepreneurship. But I also just don't know, whatever, and I'm open to all things, but it's just cool that I'm very much like leaning leaning into this stuff, and I just see all the potential brewing. But yeah, I'm excited about that course and this research stuff that I'm going to talk about today. And I was thinking how like it all kind of falls into this category, right, of like my dreams and working on my dreams, and I'm trying to figure out how to practically start incorporating that into my, which is, there's the practicality of it, of like budgeting time and like sitting down every day, or like, saying, okay, on
Yeah.
like on these days I'm going to start spending like these hours on my course, or I'm going to start crafting it. And there is like, when you're in our position, you're trying to create like a business, or a conscious business, like a living, breathing, conscious, like everything is going to be, my intuition and connection to source is going to be infused into like everything that I do. So it's like not just like, oh, sitting down, like, oh, I have to think. It's like sitting down and connecting to source and connecting to like my higher self and letting that come through. And it's so different. And so I feel like I'm kind of in this transition point where it's like I have these things, and because I've been kept busy with the tutoring, which has been really great for this time and has really been great for my abundance, and
Mm-hmm.
it's allowing me to do all these really great things like travel and stuff. So I feel like I've kind of been in this in between of, I've been busy with that, but I have all these things that are the most tangible, and they're brewing so closely, so much more close than they have ever before. And now it's just a matter of like figuring out how to practically implement it. But I was kind of getting this vision before, like a few days ago, of like our dreams and these things that we want to do, right? It's like they fall under this category, but they, in the sense that it's very connected to our heart and it's very connected to the soul, right? And it's like we need to carve out time. And oh yeah, okay, this is what it was. It's like we we need to carve out time to just work on like our dreams, and you don't even have to, and that's where the intuition comes in, because you don't even need to like plan as much as you think. It was like that's kind of what the download was, or which is this epiphany was. It was like, and but you have to feel into, like, you have to make that a dreamy place. Like, I was actually kind of getting this vision of like a secret little pond. I don't know, like a secret
Mm-hmm.
little pond that is like only your place, right? And it's like it's secluded. It's like both you swimming in the pond, and this pond just exists kind of in the middle, and it's like that's your little safe hideaway place. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
that's where all of your dreams and your whatever like really soul filled desires are, and the things that are going to fulfill your soul, and that's like where they live. And and it's about, I guess, kind of giving yourself permission to tap into that without pressure, and just really letting your intuition lead like where it goes. Because I feel like before I was kind of thinking of it as like all these categories. I'm like, oh, I need to schedule time to like work on my course, or schedule time to work on this. And then I was kind of just like softening it, and I'm like, but all of these things just fall into this category of like my dreams and like all these things that are so important to me. And I just need to like sit down and connect, and then see like what wants to come through, and you don't have to control it so much. And yeah, I guess that's kind of what was on the brain, because I'm figuring out how to practically implement this into the physical reality. Like, okay, I have these dreams, I have all these things. I know that they're going to make me feel fulfilled. Like, how do I stop treating them like another thing on the to-do list? Or how do I really treat it like the divine being that it is? Because it is like all of these things.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and I feel like that is something that I'm working with even in right now. So I feel like you really like hit the nail on the head with that, because it's been like an interesting time, like how I've been feeling lately, and the best way that I can sum it up is like I've been like same thing where I've been called to like tap into what is it that my heart wants to create? What am I here to create and birth into this world, and like all these dreams? And I'm like, yeah, it's so beautiful. And then like it comes down to it, and I'm finding myself being like so easily distracted.
Hmm.
Like I just recently deleted my social media accounts because I just got like the intuitive hit, like limit all distractions and like go like do you really sit with yourself right now, and also create that time to like build that, like you were talking about.
Yeah.
And I keep getting the message like it's going to be easier than you think, but like you have to like do it. And I've been noticing this kind of like it's like, and this is interesting too because it's almost like when I've in the past talked about like going into a psychedelic ceremony or a ceremony, and it's like your body feels the resistance beforehand. You're like, I don't want to go, I don't want to do it, and I'm feeling that a little bit, and it's almost like my
Totally.
subconscious is finding ways to distract myself, and then it's like 3 hours later, and I'm like, what did I do today? Or like, you know, like I'm finding little things like if it's wedding planning, it's not like those things don't need to be done, but it's like I'm not logically thinking about it. It's like my subconscious is like, what can I do to distract me? So it's like, what part of me
Mm-hmm.
is also afraid of tapping into that, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel you on that. Yeah.
Because even when I like let go of my social media accounts just for now, like not actually deleted the accounts, but just deleted the app so that I would like stay off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I trailed off again.
um, resistance around working on your stuff. Is that what you're
Oh
saying?
yeah, it was interesting how, because I was like, okay, that'll help me out, but
Yeah.
like it didn't. It did,
Yeah.
but then I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm realizing I'm on the computer, like researching like things or looking up things, and like it
Mm-hmm.
also while I'm doing it, I'm realizing that like I'm not grounded at all. Like there's like some type of urgency that I need to do this research on this thing and figure it out, or like look for hotel rooms like right now, or like do this one thing, or like. And it's just like and it's like there's like a piece of me that's like avoiding whatever wants to like avoiding like listening, right?
Yeah.
So my guidance lately has also been set aside the time, schedule the time.
Mm-hmm.
And what's also been interesting, because when I do stop and go like in, like I've noticed my intuition right now is like super sharp. Like I'm just like boom, 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 boom. But there is a part of me that is like resisting
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I have been getting the similar guidance of yes, like how do I bring that in tangibly, and then also setting the time aside to feel into it. And I love what you said without like about not having to really overly plan it, but kind
Mm-hmm.
of just like letting it happen and connect to your heart, because I think that like um that like I'm thinking of when I was in Medicine Wheel and we did the expressive arts piece, and I loved that so much because
Yeah.
it was like we would have like a piece of paper and some like crayons or paint, and it would just be like paint your this feeling from your childhood, or paint this, and it's like but they like but all of the art pieces we made were very abstract. Like it's not like we like they weren't like, you know, like little humans where we're actually like painting that. It's like very abstract, but we're like expressing ourselves like through the art, and then like that's the creation
Mm-hmm.
that you birth. So
Yeah.
and I think that can be applied to and works in the same way if it even with the course or whatever you want to bring through in that way too, because it
Right.
is all like a creative, like a artistic creative process, if it's,
Yeah.
you know, a canvas, or if
Mm-hmm.
it's a course, because that course is still your blank canvas to create.
Yeah. And it's like the thought is, or like the idea is, whatever whatever is kind of like soul work is, it's not going to be born out of obligation. It's going to be born out of this like dreamy vibe, like this dreamy curiosity energy that's pulling you and it's calling you. And it's like that's the thing, like I feel the call so strongly. It's like I can tell like something is calling me, and what it and the place that's calling me, it feels like this secret, like magical place of excitement and wonder, and it feels good, and it feels like connection to divine. And it's like that is, that's where it's born out of, and
Well, and I think that even with that, it's like how can we set up like how you're saying, like so it's not just like another task to do. Like I really like this like kind of dreamy
yeah.
space that you're talking about, because it really feels that. And so it's like how can we nurture that space and not just be something else on the to-do list. So even like our environment, like I'm kind of envisioning that space like in my mind's eye, but then like bringing it into my environment. It's like, how can I set up a time? And then also like maybe I make myself like a nice like cup of cacao, or I like light one of my favorite candles or incense, and like
Mm-hmm.
make it a really pleasurable experience and kind of stack those on top of each other
Yes.
too. Cause I think there's a piece of it. Um, I know you and I, having experienced feelings around like ADHD and stuff like that, I think there is some, at least for myself, I've noticed this resistance around like the word like work.
Yeah.
So I feel like try, like how can we make it not work and fun and pleasurable, and then just like open up those creative centers without like all the pressure there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like, I think definitely the whole thing about just like calling it just my dreams or my soul, whatever lights my soul on fire, or those kinds of things, and like planning it in that way and not needing to plan everything else, because obviously your intuition will fill the rest in. And it's like, yeah, for me, I know I have like 3 to 4 categories of things that I want to be building. And
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that I need to like plan it out so much, but now I'm just like I just need to carve time for my dreams and just see what is being called to work on. And yeah, it's like everyone has that place, that thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that was a really beautiful message for me, and kind of like reframe and perspective too, because it's also something I've deeply been feeling into. And then there's like, I'm noticing there's these uncomfortable emotions coming up, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, interesting. It's like the part that's like that I'm feeling distracted, and then all of a sudden, like my day's gone to like completely something else. Like, what, like that's an opportunity for me to feel into like what's coming up too. Like, is there's like, like some feelings of maybe fear of failure,
Mhm.
or, fear to be
Yeah.
seen, or like now, like there's some opportunities to go deeper into myself of the emotions that some of that is bringing up too.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I'll also say in that space, I think too, like I like what you said about like not really planning it, just kind of showing up in that space, because then that's a really good time too to also like have your journal handy, connect with yourself, tap into your heart, and then just like write even.
Mhm.
Like just write and let the ideas flow through, or whatever's flowing through, kind of like dump that out on a page. Like the ideas will come, the planning will probably even come through that. So it's like a really beautiful message of, it really doesn't have to be that hard. It gets to be easy. It
Mhm.
can be fun and dreamy, and we can create that space. And I'm very much receiving that message and needed to hear that today.
Good.
So thank
Yeah.
you.
Good, good. It's like, yeah, and just the whole thing like with that visual of the little pond, it was just that like the message there was like everyone has that thing that's like calling them.
Yeah.
Everyone has that something. It's like, what's your version of that? It's like, go spend time there. Go spend time at the pond. Like that was the message. It's like, go to the fucking pond, will you?
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I'm like, you're right. I should just go to the pond and just see what's there for me. So, yeah, cool. Yes, I'm glad I was called to remember to say that. Okay. So, yeah, so other things now that I wanted to talk about was, let's start off with this really awesome reading that I had, which was now, it was a few months ago now, but it's fine because it's needed that amount of time to digest because it was such an intense reading. Maybe one of the more important readings I've ever had, just because it was so wild. And it really kind of has set me off on a new research path and everything. So, like I on this podcast, I don't know whoever's listening, how long you've been listening, but like I'm always saying that I'm trying to do some shit. Like I'm trying to do some shit in this lifetime in terms of like changing the field of astronomy, changing the field of astrophysics, because we're not looking in all of the right places for the true answers. Like, just basically quantum physics is not incorporated into astrophysics at all at an academic research level. Like, there's people that are doing research in quantum physics and stuff like theoretical things like time, and that's where like time gets in. But like in standard astrophysics academia, everyone just assumes time is linear and like quantum physics is not taken into account. And so, and especially there's no research on the
Yeah, I'm
soul.
curious. Sorry not to
Yeah,
cut you off,
there
but
you go.
like what really is quantum physics? Like, is that something that from an astrophysicist level, like in kind of academia now, like, is that something that they even like recognize as being
Yeah,
something, or is that kind of like more like pseudoscience shit
that's the thing.
to them?
It's not pseudoscience at all.
Okay.
Everyone knows that quantum physics is real.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Yeah.
so that's what's crazy about it too. Like Einstein famously called quantum physics spooky action at a distance. But what quantum physics is this
Spooky.
is the fact that it's like at its most simplistic level, like the definition of quantum physics is that two particles can have an effect on each other at a large distance, where such that there's no such a gravity, like the gravitational forces or any other like magnetic or atomic forces, there's no explanation like with those involved. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
I know
so
that.
it's two uh particles being able to communicate with each other, to interact with each other at extremely large distances, like one edge of the universe to the other edge of the universe. And again, the whole idea is that there's none of the fundamental forces that we know can explain that.
And that's just energy, and like that's just pure energy.
Mhm.
Um, I find it like it's so crazy that I feel like people think magic doesn't exist out there, or
I
like
know.
are like growing up, our general society is like magic's not a thing. Like I had to go through a whole thing where it's just like your child, and I'm like magic, and then it's like, oh fuck no, like boom, and then now I'm having to be like magic, it's
Mhm.
real. Speaking of that, okay, if anyone's interested, read the book Child of Magic by Christine, I think Christine Olivia Hernandez. It's like a story, and it does involve cacao, and it's like just like a small novel, like an actual story, and it's so cute and uplifting, and I love it. So I just wanted to like plug that really quick because I was talking about like magic and being like a
Mhm.
child of magic. So
Ooh, a child
check
of
that
magic.
out. But yeah, I just like with stuff like that because that is science that we actually know. It's just like
Mhm.
that's magic. Like
Mhm.
what other definition of magic is like that's magic.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone can admit that quantum physics is, well, not only true. So, yeah, it's not only true and proven with observation and some of the experiments that go along with it. There's the observer effect, or there's the fact that a particle can change its state. A particle can be affected by whether or not it was observed. So, like a particle will have a different state if it's observed versus not observed.
Oh, that is
It's
so
another part of,
interesting.
yeah.
The observer effect is so interesting.
Yeah.
We've talked about that before too. Like when I go out to Lucia's
Oh.
place for her linking awareness observer days, they're
Oh,
linking awareness observer days. That's what they're called.
yeah. Right.
And she speaks about how powerful it is if you're not getting a session, how powerful it is to be there as an observer. So think of all the particles you're
Yeah.
witnessing.
Right. Exactly. There's an exchange of information that's happening
Yes.
when you're observing
Yes.
anything.
Yes. And
Yeah.
like this even goes a little bit into what you were talking about before about your creating your dreamy space. And I was saying, just like create your space and get out your journal and just like write whatever is happening or whatever's coming through to you. Because I was also listening to this one podcast. I think I recently plugged it, but this is a really good one. It was with Blue. It was on Emily Fletcher's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Why is everyone not doing this? And Blue of Earth was the guest speaker. Um, shit, what was I saying?
Um, the dreamy space. Was
before that.
Observer.
Shit, somewhere in
It
between
was
that. Damn it.
it was about the blue earth
Yeah,
dreamscape.
What were they talking about? Oh my god, my mind is literally like blocked right now. This was a good point. Sorry.
It's okay. You're okay.
um. Oh, yes. Okay, so on the podcast they were talking about Blue was talking about like being witnessed in your art and in your creation, right? So like she was talking about how she has like she's an artist and she likes to paint. But there's this magic in being witnessed. So if you have a bunch of poems in your like journal that have never been witnessed, it's like start sharing them, start putting them out there, and not like expecting an outcome or result, but just to have your creation, just to have your art witnessed. And like that is this observer effect, like the power that's in that.
Also, that being witnessed is the okay, so anytime anything is created, right, it's like there's some source origination, like it's coming from some higher divine place, either your higher self or source. And so it's like that is going through you for its creation, and then anytime then you create it, so it goes through another layer there, and then it being whatever your creation being witnessed is the next step of the source origination, like the divine origination, continuing to move through to the next level.
Yeah, it's all very interesting.
That was just this like visual that came to me, like the source that moves through, and then it's like, so it's the divine being perceived.
There's another aspect of it, because it's almost like the because I like if we want to go way back, like it is all, you know, source or whatever word you want to use, divine source, Sophia, Christ consciousness, whatever resonates with you.
Yeah.
So it's like the source is creating, and then it's being mirrored back, and then it's also being witnessed, right? So it's like creating and then seeing its creation, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's really interesting. It's like this like constant mirror of this like creation and being witnessed, and then like that's also where we get to choose like what we do with that energy, because like energy, you know, either you can use it, either creates or destroys. So that's where in ourselves, if we're not expressing our art in some type of way, if we're just writing down our poems that come through, or painting or dancing or singing, like there's so many different ways to express art. It doesn't have to be like specifically like with paints or whatever. But if we're not expressing that energy some way through us, that's when we start to destroy it. Like it starts to destroy because the energy needs to do something. So that's when people start having like crippling anxiety and depression and autoimmune disease. And like as an example, because that destroying energy starts to build that that dis-ease in the body. Like things start to become not harmonic anymore in the body. So it's like, but then if you harness that energy, this is like life force energy. So it's like when it has nowhere to go and it's not being harnessed, it starts to like break down, destroy, because it has no other choice. The energy has to do something. But then when we learn to harness it and express it outwards, we get to create like all of this beauty. And then in turn, that beauty gets to be like witnessed.
Yeah.
And then like more beauty creates more beauty, right? So then like if you're witnessing it, then that fractal of beauty is also being like reflected and projected out to like reflect and project more beauty.
Yeah. And it's also a consciousness exchange. There's it's kind of still like going to the observer effect, but it's anytime, well, because that's the whole thing with quantum entanglement, like, and quantum physics. Like when there's an observation, an observation sets off an entanglement in a way, or it allows there to be some kind of consciousness exchange between 2 points, and then a thread is created from that between 2 aspects of consciousness that have ever had come into contact with each other in some way.
Hmm. Yeah, it's all very interesting
Yeah.
concepts to contemplate.
Yeah. And the thread stuff is like related to this reading that I'm going to talk about.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was thinking that.
Yeah. So speaking of, hold on, I had
The
some
strings.
string theory. I wanted to bring up the notes that I had on this reading. But yeah, so quantum physics is it's not it's acknowledged as true, but it's still heavily considered not understood by everyone. And so as a result, it's
Mm-hmm.
not because it's too difficult to model and it's too difficult to incorporate into the observations, because look, what academic astrophysics is we take data with telescopes
Yes.
and we have real observations and we have the illusion of time, because as you look back um further objects at further distances are technically, we're looking at them in the past. But there's that illusion of time, but there's also the fact that, I mean, even this is sort of just like a tangent, a side note, but like I believe that I believe very much that everything that we can detect on all of our telescopes across the electromagnetic spectrum, I think that's limited by our consciousness level and our dimension that we're in. I think that there's more out there that is literally not detectable to our instruments,
Of
which
course.
I don't know if it's like a chicken or the egg. I don't know like what came first. Like I don't know if it's limited by our consciousness, if it's limited by our instruments. Um
I
but
feel like probably both.
yeah.
So our like because truthfully, like our instruments are like pretty limited right now.
It's like,
Like
well, it's
it
weird because they are, but they're not, in the sense that maybe like the resolution of the instruments, but we have instruments that can go across at every wavelength across the electromagnetic spectrum. So
mhm.
the electromagnetic spectrum goes from the longest wavelength, so like low frequency like radio waves, and then the highest energy, so it's like lowest energy, and the highest energy side of the spectrum would be like gamma rays and Fermi rays, and that's really high frequency, high energy. And so it's like I say, so that's why I say in terms of like our like limited, like that's the most that we, and so maybe that's like that's the thing, like that's the most that we can detect, so that's within our range, and we have telescopes that go within every aspect of that range. So
Mhm.
so that's why sometimes I'm like, it's like, where's the rest of it? Like,
Well, that's what I mean though.
yeah, it's like, and I don't know, because I don't know, I truly don't know, because I don't know if it's just like either like different wavelengths exist that are beyond the range of our electromagnetic spectrum. I don't know if it's that we go into an entirely different type of system and we're not talking like wavelengths as we know it. We're talking like a different dimension of matter.
Okay, wait, re-say that. That what you that
Okay.
and what you said before.
Okay, because my understanding in terms of like what we can detect is like everything that we talk about exists along the electromagnetic spectrum, from
Yeah.
radio to
Yeah.
gamma ray.
Yeah.
In terms of like where's the other stuff that we can't detect yet, I don't know if that, like I don't know if that's if the range of which that would hypothetically be detectable to us is, I don't know if it exists at some even higher frequency, even lower frequency off of the spectrum that we know, or if it exists in a completely different form that is like matter, if it's if it's
Mhm.
not if it's not if it's not just along the like lower frequency higher frequency spectrum, and if it's matter that exists in a different, that like exists in a different dimension. I mean, it
Yeah,
obviously
yeah.
does
I
exist,
see.
it obviously doesn't exist in a different dimension, but it's like, in what form is that matter such that it can't be detected? Like it must be obsolete. It must vibrate, it must be emitting some frequency that is like not in our range. I don't know.
No, no, I definitely hear what you're saying, and I think that's true. That's why I also think that our instruments, like relatively speaking to the technological advances that we've seen on Earth, the civilizations we've had on Earth before, and the civilizations that exist outside of Earth, yeah, I would say we're pretty limited. It doesn't feel like it, because if you talk to any scientists right now, they're going to say that we're at the peak of technology when it comes to those things,
Yeah.
because that's what they think, because this is the best telescope we've seen in our lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't pick up on those things. So it is interesting, like, do they exist in like, is there something higher than gamma that we haven't detected yet or been made aware of, like, as far as like
Mm-hmm.
wavelengths, like, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. And then I think there's also like particles that are consciousness fractals that are not in the talks here. There's a consciousness particle.
Well, okay, so for example, if we're using a telescope, and like, this may be dumb explaining it, I don't know, like, I'm not an astro scientist or whatever, but like, this is my thought. So we're using this telescope or this technology that picks up, okay, so gamma, like, what's this? This is electromagnetic waves, right?
Yeah.
Rays.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're using that to, I don't know, look at myself, for example,
Mm-hmm.
is it going to pick up my thought forms? But those exist,
Right. Like, no, it'll pick up,
right?
it's heat. Everything that is detectable. I mean, there's non-thermal radiation too, but it's all technically like thermal radiation. Everything is detecting a temperature.
Yeah.
So that's what anything is anything that we detect is, we're detecting temperature ranges. So
So temperature is very 3D. Like, that's our physical
yeah.
reality now. So then my argument would be the other things, they would be in different dimensions, that the 3D technology is not, 3D technology is made for the 3D world. So it doesn't have the capacity to pick up on that. Like, it doesn't have the
Right.
technology to detect it.
Right. Yeah, and then also none of this telescope technology is addressing magnetic fields. Like, I mean, we have technology to detect magnetic polarizations. So like we can detect, which basically means like what direction is the magnetic field moving in. That's what we can make maps of, like the directionality of magnetic fields. But there's a lot more about magnetic fields and like magnetic radiation that is less explored. Yeah.
Well, and that's really crazy too, because I feel like almost everything has a magnetic field, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Gaia has her magnetic field with the poles and stuff. And then it's like our hearts have an electromagnetic field that we emit. And so do each chakra, I think. But I think the heart chakra is like the biggest one,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Um, I don't know about each chakra, but I mean
I don't know about that either.
the heart
So
is
I don't know for
generating
sure. But
our magnetic field because it's created from moving charged particles in the heart. That's that's the reason that our heart generates a magnetic field, because it's
I don't
pumping.
know. I'm seeing that each chakra does too, but it's just like
Maybe.
smaller. But I don't
Maybe.
know. It's just like
It
what I'm
might.
seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I have
it
no
might.
idea. But then, like, yeah, and right, and like, crystals have like an electromagnetic field too, and that's like the different like frequency and vibration that we feel into. That's what also is being admitted from, like, that, from Gaia, like from her
Mm-hmm.
Earth star in the center of her. It's like that crystal, that
Yeah.
magnetic field that we feel.
Right.
And that's real, like, because we know that the Earth has a magnetic field, like that is real science. Not,
Mm-hmm.
okay, not real, but like, um that it's information that we know and is recognized now.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like there's also, I think it's like there's the difference between physicality and then and consciousness, and I think that
Exactly.
yeah, magnetic fields are like holding physical matter together. Um
Yes, like electrons.
mhm, right, exactly. So they're necessary to keep our physical parts together, like as a human and as like the sun. It's helping keep it all together. But Yeah, magnetic
So,
fields. Yeah.
but then that stuff that's not going to pick up on things that's not physical. So, like my thought form
Right.
patterns are not physical,
Right. Which is
but
why.
they still exist, and we don't have the technology really to pick up on it.
Well, I
Well,
think this
we
is
kind of do.
where like time comes in, and this is where the difference between physical this is where it's like you have to move out of our physical coordinate system into some other realm where consciousness particles can travel, and there's some way for them to travel. But I
Through
think,
the electrons.
yeah. Well, would you say through the electrons? Was that what was some of the stuff in the Sophia Code book with that she was saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it was
I
like
can't
it
wait
was
to read that.
literally about learning to I'll try to explain it in the best words that I can possible. But learning how to harness your energy or your oversoul's energy. So really, and this is back to the time stuff too, everything is happening simultaneously. So all of your past lives, all of your lives are happening simultaneously, and it's a different like your body then is configured with different electrons or different like pattern or
Yeah.
different combination of electrons. So she's talking about how you're like going into it's like you're like working through the electrons to then go into the separate lifetimes of your oversoul has picked to
Oh.
like yeah, and then it's almost like bringing it all to like 0 point through the electrons. I know, it's
Ooh.
so interesting. You gotta check it out.
Okay.
I wish I had my book right in front of me because I would like read a piece. I'm gonna go grab it actually.
Okay.
Okay, you're gonna love this. Like, I'm excited to share this with you. There's some specific pieces that I already know that I'm going to read. Okay. Okay. Let us review the foundational principles regarding the electron as your first vehicle for embodiment. The electron acts as both a physical vehicle and frontline interface for your oversoul to descend as your higher self into a chosen physical matrix within the space-time continuum.
Hmm.
Okay. As a vehicle for your higher self consciousness, the electrons in your body magnetize all that is needed to create and sustain your human physiology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we were just
The
saying.
electron is a quantum particle traveling at the speed of light, which also acts as a wave function of infinite complex fields and therefore exists in every direction and dimension of reality simultaneously.
Oh. Uh-huh.
Directing your human awareness inside an electron is an access point for you to track the infinite probable future outcomes of your every decision.
I was going to say this makes sense because the electron is the piece of the atom that obeys quantum physics the most, and can't the location can never be known. It obeys the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which is that the both the position and momentum of position and velocity like of an electron can never both be known. So it can only exist in a range of probabilities. So it's like the most quantum particle. So,
There's one more piece I want to read.
yeah.
Um, you can engage with and speak directly to all of your parallel incarnations by traveling through the electrons of your human body to where they simultaneously exist within your other selves.
Whoa.
I know.
Okay. Yeah.
Damn, we got very like sciencey today, and I love it because I love too because like I'm not you like I don't like low power mode. Okay, I'll have to plug that in. I'm not like you. Like, I don't have a PhD or whatever in like this like super sciencey stuff, but it is interesting because I will get like pieces of information and I will get
Mm-hmm.
visuals of how things kind of work and like click together. So I do really enjoy talking about this stuff with you and kind of like see what comes through and stuff. I find it
Mm-hmm.
so interesting because like there is a level of my soul that does, it really enjoys talking about and like does understand different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
If you get into like crazy number shit, then I like lose you a
Mm-hmm.
little bit. But like actually talking like the quantum stuff, yeah, it's so fucking cool.
Yeah. Right. And it's okay. It's like, it's kind of reminding me of, this is, we're talking so much about like physical matter and physical space. Um, it's reminding me of this other, yeah, like one of these other downloads that I had about the physical impressions that are left behind, that are left like in our personal relative cycle positions, from the actions that we take and from our consciousness and from our decisions. So it's like every time we, yeah, so I had made a video about this on my Instagram, and I titled it Cyclical Quantum Impressions. And it was this thought that I had, and it's funny because the way that this idea was kind of born was from in earlier in January, when I had wanted to make this like really big decision to like completely change my relationship with cannabis and like exit it out of my life for a period of time to like see what I'm capable of more. And and I was thinking back to how actually at that exact time, um at that exact relative time, like at the end of January was when I stopped using, what is when I quit my addiction to Adderall. And that was at the end of so that was at the end of January. And I was like wanting to make another change in my life. And I was realizing how if I made that change at that relative position of my like annual cycle, that there's an imprint in the field. Like that was a really big decision. That was a brave decision. That was a big
Yeah.
decision. And it
Yeah.
changed a lot for me. And
Yeah.
because that was such a big decision, my like there's an imprint. Well, I think for everything, but there's a stronger imprint. Like when I revisit that relative position, that same relative position of the cycle, there's a strong imprint in my personal, in my quantum field from that decision. I'm changing the space around me. And so this is both physical and non-physical.
Mhm.
And so I was like, okay, when you revisit that same relative position, that energy, that imprint of that consciousness is still there, and you can capitalize on it more at that relative position. And that's kind of what the concept was. Like you have, so it's another way of borrowing, it's another way of like communicating with these different aspects of yourselves in terms of like borrowing confidence or borrowing bravery. Like I literally this past January, like when I had this realization of kind of this cool thought, and also about how that was around the same time of year that I had made this other big decision, this other big brave decision, I was like, I can literally borrow bravery, borrow strength from that previous version of me, and I have heightened access to it right now because I'm at the same relative position of the cycle, because there's imprints. We leave imprints in the field around us
Yeah.
based on our decisions, physical imprints.
I would argue instead of borrow in a way of feeling like it's like not yours and you're just like using it and giving it back, maybe just like harnessing that energy
Mm.
that already like exists
Yeah,
within you,
that
or like
is a good way.
tapping into that.
Yeah.
And I think that's really interesting too, because that's also kind of what I was talking about before with the electrons and the past lives, because this is like quantumly where we get to tap into like our past live versions of ourselves too. And okay,
Yeah.
so like for me, for example, I've been a witch in many past lifetimes, like very like old England in the forest, like whatever. And so like now, once I have the awareness of that and I allow myself to go into those spaces, I get to tap into that version of Mikayla or my oversoul, whoever that is in that lifetime. And what were my strengths then?
Yeah.
What was I really good at? And then I get to harness and tap into that energy. And I think that's what it's talking about through using the electrons to go into that vehicle, and then like harnessing that energy into like my potential now, and
Yeah.
like bringing those aspects of myself back and using them now.
This is exactly what I want to be doing this is exactly what the theme of my readings that I'm going to offer will be. The offering is called the Quantum Soul, and it's about tapping in to bringing in the most relevant themes or the most relevant aspects into your current incarnation, but specifically, tapping into the Akashic records in a way, but specifically like just with this intention of these are overlapping experiences that your soul had, and what are the most important themes from other lifetimes that are appearing in this lifetime that are most relevant and most helpful, and like what aspects of those can you bring in, what are the repeating lessons and themes. Yeah, that's like exactly what I want to be tapping into.
Well, and I think, and I mean, like, I've done this work for myself before. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, like, these different versions of ourselves, they can also help us, like, once we get to the level of where we are going into the quantum and we are doing this kind of work, we can harness those aspects of ourselves to help us in there too. Like, they can help us in the 3D reality, but also in there. So, like, there's also like a version of me, who's very like this kind of like underworld priestess like lady. So like then I'm like tapping into her
Yeah.
when I wanted to go into the underworld and maybe retrieve fractals of myself, or like go down in there and like
Mm-hmm.
use her strengths or her knowledge from that lifetime about being like so good with that. So then harnessing that for myself when I do that sort of quantum work with myself.
Yeah.
Or and then there's also the ones like the angelic lifetimes where I'm way up high there. So if I'm wanting to go up there or like feeling into those frequencies and harnessing the energy from those lifetimes as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And
And those different aspects of yourself can help you. And this is actually probably a good message for you when you start doing these quantum readings. So first of all, you'll probably want to tap into these different aspects for yourself.
yeah.
And then once you have like a few that you really resonate with, or you can really if like kind of refine like the energy and tap into it, those aspects are going to help you in these readings with other sessions, because maybe you'll be like in a session with someone and it's like we're going into the underworld to retrieve something from them, and you'll tap into the piece of you that can help you with that, or a piece of you that knows this space in the universe, or the piece of you that knows this space, and there's a reason why you know that you're learning that, so that you can tap into those different aspects, those different avatars is a really good word,
Oh, yeah.
those different vehicles, those electrons that made that vehicle, for you to harness that power, that energy to conduct that session.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So cool. Yeah. So, yeah, so that was like one concept about like just just the way that our the way that like our consciousness leaves imprints that are accessible, and they're obviously like always accessible to us, but I think there is like this is the thing that always is like driving all of my thoughts, like where the physicality comes in, because like like physicality is so important, right? Like, and I'm always thinking about like how does the divine like it, because it well what it is it's a trickling down, right? It's like it starts at the energetic and then it trickles down into the physical. And I always just I'm thinking about things like divine interactions, like when you're supposed to meet this random person on this street corner or whatever. It's like it starts off as a soul contract, but then it's like what's happening in our light bodies and in our fields that is then ricocheted out into the world that we interact with to perfectly line up our physical vessels into the right place. So that's what like I'm always fixated on, this whole thing of like it's soul driven and it's spirituality, and like there's it exists at this soul level and soul contracts, but then I'm like, how does it transfer down into the physical? um yeah, sort of a tangent, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's all some very interesting concepts that we've talked about today to like contemplate.
This was a fun discussion of the quantum and all these things. So hope this was enjoyable and broke your brain as much as it breaks mine, because it always is still making my brain hurt a little bit. But this is my pond. This is what makes me happy. This is my pond is the quantum field. It's always bringing me back. So yeah, on the next episode, I will tell the story of my reading that I had with my friend Danny, and all about my research that it is driving me in the direction of. So thank you so much though for listening, and please follow me on Instagram at interdimensional.astrophysics and the podcast at the Orphic podcast. Also check us out on YouTube. All these episodes are on YouTube, so definitely subscribe to us there. What else?
Yeah, please follow me at Mariposa Moonchild on Instagram and check me out there for sessions and programs that I do. Also, if you have any thoughts that are sparked from our conversation today, like please comment under the YouTube or under the Apple or what, I don't know, can you make comments under Apple? I think just review anyway, or on Instagram somewhere, like comment, but like if you have any thoughts or something to add, because I'd be so curious to kind of see what it brings up for other people, because I do think a lot of these conversations are DNA activating, and I that's what I love about you and I talking, because we have a different perspective and we bring it together, and then it like kind of unlocks, I think, different pieces for each of us from hearing each other's perspective. And I think that's the same to the listeners. It's the same when I listen to another podcast. Like this is like the ripple effect. So I'd be so curious to see if some of these thoughts and concepts like brought up anything for you listening. And then as always, like thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, definitely let us know what thoughts come about, and leave a rating and review where you're listening. So thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Bye.